Rotate device back. Hey. Hi, guys. I think we're live. Are we live, Dan? I don't know.
I think we're live.
How are you guys? It's Tony Sparrow here, along with Dan Rivera. I can't tell if we're live or not. If we are live, I'd like to see somebody say something to me. What's that over here, Dan? Does that mean the device is locked?
Yeah, the device is locked. It says orientation is locked.
Rotate device
Rotate
back.
device back. Look like
Yeah.
some.
No, that's just something else. Yeah,
Yep,
I
we
think
got
we
people
got some
commenting here.
people. Now, hold the mic, Dan. The problem is, guys, we don't have a moderator. It's just Dan and me. So we have to try to read what you're saying here. Let's see. Can you see anything, Dan? Can you read anything with your lousy eyes?
Everybody's saying hi.
There.
Yep.
Hi, guys. We're from the museum, live, August 20th. Let me just look and see. Cool, Annabelle, yes. Hi, Tony, hello. See, it's hard to do it the other way.
Yeah, you can flip it sideways. I'm sure.
Yeah, if you flip it sideways, you can't see we can't read it.
Oh, gotcha.
All right, everybody. So here we are live, and I'm with Dan Rivera. There's Dan right here.
How you guys doing?
And of course, in the background, we brought Annabelle back to the museum. So if you guys have any questions for us, we'll be more than happy to take your questions and go from there. So who wants to ask the first question? Hey, how are you, Isabella? If I wanted to visit the museum, how would I go about doing that? Well, the museum's closed for now because of zoning issues. Hi from India, Frankie. Hi, Frankie, and I'm trying to keep up with everybody. Where was Annabelle? Well, she was in a secure location, which I'm not going to disclose.
Yeah,
she was locked
we can't
up.
put that information out there.
Okay, so Dan, you could read some of these things, and we can answer them too. You know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you guys hear us? Okay, that's the first question. If you can hear us, okay, just say yes. We can hear you. Because I have the mic on. I hope. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Hi from Australia. Hey, Australia. Yes, yes. Good.
Is there anybody from the UK there?
Anybody from Scotland, England, Wales, Ireland, England? When will it reopen? Where's Judy? Well, Judy's home. I don't know when we'll reopen because we have zoning issues and we have to find a location that's commercially zoned correctly and some place that's secure to have all these objects. So it'll be a while. Mexico. Hi, Mexico. They can be Satanic Idol. Yeah, well, we have it's over in the corner. Satanic Idol from Sandy Hook. Dan, you have your glasses. Can you read?
No, I got my sunglasses.
Can you see anything here?
I'm blind as a bat.
You can read with that. Nah.
You know, we're getting old here, so, Tony just gave me his glasses, so this way I can read here. Nigeria. We got people from Nigeria.
Just pick a question if you can, too, Dan. How can we become as cool
Hi
as
from
you?
Kenya.
How can we become as cool as you? Well, you got to work on it.
It takes like a long time to be cool like us. Many years of practice. I'm wearing Tony's glasses here, so I look a lot freaking cool now.
Dan, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, has been working with me for many years. He's my lead guy, and he also does the T-shirts for me and the hats and everything. Yeah, but he's been on a lot of cases. He's an expert in Santeria. He's his grandmother, and his aunts and stuff were into Santeria.
Yeah, and we work with the Catholic Church, and they take care of exorcisms for us, and we're currently working on 2 cases right now that involve the church and the clients. So there's a lot that we're doing still, the same as Ed and Lorraine did back when they were doing all this, and they founded NASPR.
Right, New England Society for Psychic Research. See if you can find a question on there, Dan, that we can answer. It's hard when you don't have a moderator, ladies and gentlemen, because there's so many questions, but we'll try.
Somebody wants to know our thoughts on Bigfoot.
Well, I think Bigfoot, and probably you too, Dan, could be a real entity. There's so much about the supernatural that we don't know about, and I think the Bigfoot exploration into Bigfoot, I think it's real because Lorraine and Ed were down in Tennessee many years ago. they got called down there because a family that lived in a shanty house were saying that a Bigfoot approached their daughter when she walked out the back door and tried to grab her. So Lorraine went down there with Ed, and she walked through the wooded area behind the shanty. And what she said was that she psychically was able to communicate with this uh, creature that she said was more human than anything else, but it had hair all over its body. She psychically could see the picture of it. But what she got from this psychic reveal was that Bigfoot was not trying to hurt the little girl. That he got wounded somehow. He hurt his foot, but he had no intention to hurt anyone. So in Lorraine's eyes and Ed's eyes, Bigfoot is a real entity. Even though she didn't physically see it with her physical eyes, she saw it with her mind's eye or her third eye, psychically. And when Lorraine says she saw something, I believe it. And that's why I kind of believe that there is a Bigfoot. Dan.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree.
Any other questions here?
Yeah, somebody saying, how old is Annabelle?
Well, we don't know exactly how old Annabelle is, except that she was given to the nurses in Hartford that worked for Hartford Hospital. They lived in an apartment not too far. They were given the doll in 1970. So the doll's at least, 50 years old
It's
at
got to be
least.
over 50 years old. I mean, they got the doll back in 1970s, but that doesn't tell us
We don't know
exactly
when
her age. I mean, when the doll was
I'm
created.
sure someone who's an expert in dolls can look at the doll and see when that particular iteration
And another
was made.
question was when you were holding the camera up to you, somebody was asking, they see Annabelle blinking behind us.
They do? I don't. But actually, then again, I wasn't looking. There's the doll. So we can't really see, ladies and gentlemen, because the messages are coming over our face and the messages are blocking Annabelle. We've had reports that the doll has moved many times from reports such as this. And like I said before in my other video, that she has moved when someone photographed her, then 10 minutes later took another photo while in the museum and the hands were in a different location. So I'd say that it's very, very possible that she's been moving a little bit inside that case. Now, Dan, you want to tell them a little bit about how you made that portable case?
Oh, that case right there. I made that. It's all made by hand. What I did was when I built this case, I infused the case with holy oil within the stain. And I put 3 crosses on there to represent the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And on the side of the case are 2 plaques of Saint Michael. So inside the case, behind the felt, is the Lord's Prayer that I inscribed into the walls of the case, and the Lord's Prayer, Our Father. This all helps binds Annabelle to the case. Now, it contains the evil inside this case. Now, people were asking, is it possible for Annabelle to escape? Physically, no, it's not possible for her to escape. But if somebody comes in here with the intent to focus 100% into this doll and gaze into her eyes, telepathically, she could come to you. She probably could, depending on what your intentions are, and she could come to you in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning and haunt you in your dreams. Right. Do you agree with that, Tony?
Yeah, I agree 100%. 100% I agree with that. That's the danger of the doll. The danger of the doll is not it's going to come at you and start slashing at you or attack you and strangle you. It's the psychic ability of this evil that's within the doll, that's infused within. In other words, it can come to you in your dreams. It can come to you at a later date. I'm not saying the doll's going to show up, but something evil could show up to harm you, like a bad car accident, something tragic happens that you would never assume is for the doll. It might be 6 months later, and you would never think it's a doll, but it was because you had challenged it in some fashion. So that's why we say don't challenge evil in any form. Don't challenge it. Don't feed into it. Don't challenge it, because it's an unseen, intangible enemy. If you see an enemy in front of you, you can confront it and deal with it. But when you can't see it, that's what's frightening. Even right. Police officers and stuff in houses, like in 966 Lindley Street in Bridgeport, Connecticut, there was a bunch of police officers that were in that house in 1974. It was a poltergeist case. And they were in the house, but they had guns, they had batons, they had mace, but they didn't have the psychic ability to deal with what was there. The mental capacity, they only wanted to deal with the physical. So when things were falling off the walls, when the cat, from around the cat, you could hear the cat singing Jingle Bells. I know it sounds funny, but this evil that was there had materialized the larynx of the cat and vocalized the song Jingle Bells. So
Jingle
that would
bells.
scare the heck out of people, saying this isn't real. This can't be happening. And crucifixes were falling off the walls,
Pictures were spinning on the
spinning
wall.
on the walls. The TV sets were toppling over simultaneously. These little TV sets they had in the house toppled over. A refrigerator moved out from the wall, a 450-pound refrigerator. The cops were so frightened, and there was a priest that Ed and Lorraine brought in, Father Bill, who had trained at the Vatican in exorcisms. He was in the house to observe. Before these police, there's about 9 of them in the house. Before the shift ended, they walked up to the priest and they said, "Father, can you bless us before we go home?" And they went on their knees in front of the priest because they were so frightened. When it happens to you, then you believe. And these police officers never saw or witnessed anything like that previously. And we have police reports of these police officers describing what they saw in the house.
Right, right. And people say, to this day, they ask questions, is there activity still in that house? Here's the funny thing. My wife's an accountant, and one of her clients is a plumber. And they came to her one day, and they know me. They know I work with the Warrens, and he says, I got to tell you the story. I got a, call to go back to this house, and there's an old lady that lives in the house, and she was saying, there's water in my basement. I think one of my pipes are leaking. So the guy goes down there in the basement to check to see if there's any pipes that are leaking, and he smells cat urine. He goes over there and he sees a puddle on the floor, and he smells it, and he yells up to the lady, say, "Hey, lady, your pipes are not leaking, but you got to get a litter box for your cat." And the old lady says, "I don't have a cat." So it goes to tell you, from what happened in that house with the cat singing Jingle Bells, the cops running out of there, it gives credence to what was going on in that house, with that happening there. So he wanted to share that story with us.
There's so many things that we can't explain, ladies and gentlemen, that happens to people. And why do we believe it? Because we've heard the same kind of stories over and over again. They can't be all getting together and making the same stories. They're from all over the country, all over the world. So we know these things by evidence that we've gathered, by interviews, by eyewitness accounts on our own. The things that could happen. Dan and I, we've been in houses. I've been grabbed. Dan's been touched. We've heard voices in the house, voices that were just coming from nowhere, and insanely bad smells in the house, cold spots in the house that you
Right.
can't fathom where they're coming from, and people tormented with nightmares and they can't sleep. We got any more questions here, Dan? That I can't really
Yeah,
see
somebody
them.
they want us to show they want to see Annabelle. So could we get a little bit closer? Maybe we
Yeah,
could show Annabelle.
let me see if I can zoom in. I can't. There it is.
Now,
Where am
Tony, while you're zooming in on that, can you tell us what was why do we do events? Why do we take Annabelle out to the public and we show her?
Well, we take the doll out to the public and show her, first of all, because there's interest by paranormal investigators who they want to see and talk about evidence that was gathered. That's number one. In other words, Dan, if you were an art student, right,
Right.
and you went to an art class and learned about modern art, and they handed you a book, even with the Dan's getting an important phone call. It's
There you go.
probably your wife, right? But anyway, so look at a nose on me there.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, there's Annabelle. But getting back to, say, Dan, you were an art student taking a modern art course in school, and they handed you a book, and it talked all about modern art, talked about the brush strokes, it talked about the perspective, talked about the heaviness of the brush strokes and impressionistic art, right?
Hmm.
But you never saw modern art yourself.
Right.
How much are you going to know really about what modern art is and what it's
Hmm.
all about? But if you went to a museum and then the instructor said, "There's Monet. Look at the brush strokes on the painting water lilies. Look how thick that brushstroke is. And look how they made the shadows of the leaves and the pond lilies. Now you got a better appreciation, right?
Right.
Same thing when you see an actual object that's been haunted. That's the first thing I'd like to say. Second thing is that's evidence that the demonic is real. We want people to know the demonic is real. In other words, I talk about Annabelle, but if I never showed anybody Annabelle, they'd say, well, you keep talking about Annabelle, where is it?
Right.
What am I going to say? I threw it out in a dumpster? Of course not. I want to show the evidence. That's why we have a museum here.
Right. And here's another question, Tony. Now, when I moved Annabelle from Ed's case to this case, now, can you tell me, why the doll didn't affect me?
Yeah, I can tell you exactly why. Several reasons. Number one, Dan, you went to confession prior to that. You were in what's known as a state of grace.
Right.
You recently converted to Catholicism, right? You were a Pentecostal, right?
Right.
But you went to Catholicism, and you have a very religious priest that you trained under, and a traditional Catholic priest. Dan was in a state of grace, number one. Number two is we got a gallon of holy water that was blessed by the same priest and put it in a bowl, and Dan drenched his hands in the bowl of water. Then I gave Dan a set of welding gloves. They weren't oven mitts, by the way. They were welding gloves.
Welding gloves.
And he put those on as an extra layer of protection. And we said certain prayers asking for God's protection from anything evil, demonic, or inhuman when you touch that doll.
Right.
We said, in the name of Jesus Christ, Lord, we ask protection for Dan Rivera. He's about to move something that's evil. Please protect him, protect his aura from anything evil. And then we also, before Dan ever did that, we had a little session where we closed our eyes and we envisioned me and Dan in what's known as a Christ light, or
Christ
God's
light.
light of protection around his aura. This is all things that Ed Warren told me how to do if I ever had to move the doll. So people say, well, that you're wearing oven mitts. What's that do? Ed always told me, don't touch it directly. Don't touch it with your skin. Now, I'm taking Ed's word for it as a demonologist for over 50 years.
Right.
He told me how to do it, so I'm following his instruction.
Right.
And he also told me about the drenching the hands in the holy water. The devil, anything evil, is repulsed by anything blessed.
Oh, exactly.
Repulsed by holy water, repulsed by artifacts that are blessed, like medals and crucifixes. They're repulsed by prayer. They're repulsed by anything that's God-like. That's why how we did it. And we want to move the doll again back to another case that because Dan he wants to reinfuse it with holy oil, and he wants to add another prayer into the back, the St. Michael the Archangel prayer. He wants to inscribe it. We're trying to wait for the right time. We don't know when the right time is. There's a lot of activities, a lot of mentioning and talking about Annabelle, which adds too much recognition, like we're doing now.
Yeah.
Where with more recognition, the more you draw things to you.
Right. And here's another thing, Tony. Okay, so it didn't affect me because I was blessed by a priest. I have my faith in God.
Yes.
I mean, the doll even stayed in a hotel room with me overnight.
Inside a case.
Inside the case, of course. But what I'm saying is I didn't put myself into that doll. I didn't give it the recognition. Now, for somebody to come in here and the only thing they want to do is, to meet Annabelle. And I think you mentioned that in your last video.
I did.
And how does that affect them? Because they open themselves up to this evil.
Negativity attracts negativity. Like attracts like. And the more you give recognition to something, the more drawn to it you are, and the more drawn to you they are.
Right.
So, in other words, and remember in school, like in high school, you had a fight with your best friend or with a girlfriend, right? Or a friend. You had a fight with them the night before. Now, when you're young, you're very impressionable, emotional. And you're saying to yourself, I don't ever want to see Joe again.
Right.
I hate this guy. He really ticked me off. And all night long, all you could think about when you went to bed is, I don't want to see that son of a gun in the morning, that Joe, but he ticked me off, The next morning, you're walking in the hallway. The first thing you do is round the corner on the way to homeroom, right? And what do you see? Joe. He's walking right at you. You just invited him in by all this negativity, all this recognition.
Right, right.
And so too much recognition, ladies and gentlemen, is a bad, bad thing when it comes to the demonic. Too much recognition of the Lord is never a bad thing. The more you pray, the better off you're going to be protected. But when you start to fixate on the negative, fixate on evil, fixate on negative things, you draw it to you. That's why people say, well, I see the glass is half full or I see the glass is half empty. If you see the glass is half full, you're a positive person. If you see it as half empty, you might be more of a negative type of a person. You're looking at the negative all the time,
Right.
drawing it to you. Any more questions here, Dan?
Yeah, it says here, let's see.
Can you see with the glasses?
Yeah.
Those are nice
Yeah,
glasses.
there's so many people commenting. It's just moving so
Those are
fast.
my glasses.
Those are your glasses.
You look almost like somebody I know.
And it's kind of funny that I do look like that person, but
Look. You look almost like that person, except that you're better looking.
yeah.
All right, so any good questions here? Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, for not seeing all of them because there's so many coming so quickly, and we don't have a moderator. Can you read any of them?
People want to see the shadow doll.
Well, we're not going to walk around the room right now with the shadow doll. We're just going to answer questions. The shadow doll's over in the corner there. But I've done a video on the shadow doll. It's on the channel.
And somebody's asking, can you drown Annabelle? I mean,
no, you can't destroy a spirit. Spirits cannot be destroyed. Evil spirits can never be destroyed. The thing is, every evil spirit, every human spirit, every demonic spirit, every angelic spirit that's ever been created is still here. Spirits are energy, and energy cannot be destroyed. So any spirit that God has created is still here. Where are they, though? God commanded the fallen angels back to hell. So, but some are able to escape. Some are able to roam the world, to roam the earth, looking for us to destroy.
Right.
So, in that regard, we can't drown Annabelle. First of all, she's an inanimate object. But what's within the doll, we don't know what it is, but it can't be destroyed because spirit cannot be destroyed. You're never going to be destroyed.
No.
Dan, you're not, I'm not, and nobody listening today will ever be destroyed. You will always live on. And that's the beauty part about creation.
Well, we're created in the Lord's image.
We're created in God's image.
And the demonic doesn't like that. The devil doesn't like that.
It's a hated image, the demonic.
Right.
It's a hated image. Because the devils, remember, are angels that have fallen from God's grace because they decided to go on their own. They decided to be like God. They can never be God. No one can be God except God. But they want to be God-like. And they don't have as much power as God. And they're jealous of that too. And they made a choice. And that choice is irreversible for the demonic, They can't say, oh, I used to hate God, now I don't, so I want to come back in his graces. God wrote them off because he made them make a decision, and they will not change their minds. So demonic will stay for a long, long time until God comes back, the Lord comes back, and there's a reckoning.
Right.
What do we got, Dan?
Let's see if we could get these are going so fast. They were asking what else do we have in the museum?
Well, we have the voodoo dolls or fertility dolls. We have an actual voodoo doll. We have a fertility doll. We have the New England witch doll, which is a doll of witchcraft, where people will make an image of this doll in someone else's image, small, and it's hung from a wooden hanger, like a noose hanger. And they take this doll and the noose and the hanger, and they put a piece of pork on it, and they take that pork and wrap it around the neck of the doll, and then they put it outside someone's house, preferably near their bedroom, maybe hanging from a bush or a tree. And as the pork rots, the person that's the witchcraft and the incantations were made against will get sicker and sicker until the ultimate goal is to have this person die. That's Maya magic or black witchcraft. It's from they call it the New England witch doll, but it's from the European nations. We also have the Satanic Idol that was found in the woods in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, about 1991, I think. I told that story in another video, which we can tell again later. And we've got the Annabelle doll, of course. We have the creature from the Devil in Connecticut case, and the Devil in Connecticut case is going to be the Conjuring Three.
Conjuring Three, right?
Which I'm a little bummed that it wasn't out in June. We were supposed to go out for the premiere in June. And why I like the premiere, just to let you guys know, is you're rubbing elbows with the big celebrities, the stars of the movies, the director, and sometimes other celebrities show up as like a backup. Like that man who played the sheriff in Bates Motel, he was at the premiere of Annabelle 2 because he knew Vera. He played the sheriff in Bates Motel. So you meet all these people, that you thought you'd never meet. And then afterwards they have an after party, which is really cool because all the drinks are free, all the food is free, and you know how I like to eat, right there.
That's right. You're Italian.
Like a pig. And by the way, Dan here, he's not Italian, but of course he wants to be, like most people.
Yeah, people think I'm Italian.
Most
but
people
I'm not.
want to be. Because he makes a really mean tomato sauce and meatballs and.
Well, but the thing is, I cook a lot better than most Italians, and I don't want to brag, but I do.
He does. He does. He does. That's why he's like an honorary Italian to me. And he wants to have a cook-off with me of all people.
And I'll beat him.
He wants to cook sauce and meatballs and spaghetti or pasta, and then have like a taste test for various people, not knowing which one is who made what, and see which one is better, like a taste A and B comparison.
No, we should do a live feed. We should do a live feed while we're doing. No, you're not going to win. My sauce is good. I'm telling you.
He does make good sauce. What do you put in there anyway? Adobo or something? What the heck
No, I don't
put
put adobo. Secret ingredients, I can't tell you that.
Yeah. I had a sauce one time, and I didn't want to admit it, but it was damn good. And I don't want to say it was better than mine. I'll never say it's better than mine. We'll have to have an outside party say that. But I think his sauce is comparable to most Italian sauce. It's really good.
Right.
And he also makes good chicken, too. Good chicken and olives and rice and olives, right?
Yep.
What else do you make? Oh, empanadas.
Oh, empanadas.
He makes
empanadas are the best empanadas.
He makes homemade empanadas, ladies and gentlemen. And Dan is from Hispanic descent. He's a Puerto Rico.
Originally my
Spain?
ancestors came from France. My great grandfather's last name is Caban. It was changed when they moved from the Canary Islands to Puerto Rico, and when they were entered into Puerto Rico, they gave them the last name Rivera. So my real last name is Caban.
It is?
It is.
Caban. I like that name. And the thing is, when I first met Dan, he showed up for one of our Warrenologies years ago, or maybe even before that. First thing he said to me is, I want to get in that house. I said, yeah, I'm going to let you in. Dan, he goes, if you don't, I'll cut you. That's what he said to me.
I did, and I had a switchblade.
He had a big blade on him. He said, I'll cut you if you don't let me in. So I let him. I'm only kidding. He didn't do that. But any other questions here, Dan, though, that we could...
All right, let me see the phone, because you know what?
Here, you do that.
There you go.
I'll hold the mic.
Somebody's asking a question. Do you ever have dreams of the devil? Now, actually, you did tell me a story about a dream you did have when you were at the house and you fell asleep on the recliner. Can you tell us that story?
Well,
actually, somebody was asking that.
One I had. This is weird. I was sleeping on my recliner. I fell asleep on the recliner, and when I awakened, there was this ugly, monstrous face staring at me, almost like a mocking look, and then instantaneously, maybe a second, and it vanished. But I was wide awake. I had awakened from being asleep. And this monstrosity was staring right in my face, inches away from my face in a mocking way. And that scared the heck out of me because it was real. What's that one about? Yikes? Or is that Valak?
Yeah, somebody wants to know about Valak.
Valak is the name of a real demon, ladies and gentlemen. But it's not anything that Ed and Lorraine had ever encountered. That was made up for the movie. A lot of stuff is movie magic. A lot of stuff is... dramatic license for to make it more entertaining, just like the Annabelle doll. That's the real Annabelle doll, but they made an ugly porcelain doll, which we probably could show you at a later time, or turn our cameras around. I have the movie doll too. So Valak is a made up case but the nun and Valak, that was not anything that Ed and Lorraine really investigated. Ed never drew or painted a nun. He painted a lot of stuff, believe me, New England scenes, haunted house scenes, but he didn't paint he didn't paint a nun. He didn't paint Valak. What else do we have? Anything else?
Somebody's asking, did Lorraine want all the museum items to go to the Vatican?
That was one of her thoughts, but you know what? The Vatican doesn't want it. The Vatican doesn't want it. And you know why the Vatican doesn't want it?
Why is that?
They don't want to admit that these evil objects are real and there's the things that they've done. The Catholic Church is very, very conservative. They don't want them. So we're going to have an alternative.
Right. Now, somebody's asking another question here. Is the Amityville case, is that fake?
No. Oh, no, the Amityville case is one of the most real cases that you could ever imagine. But remember this, ladies and gentlemen, like I just spoke of. The movie producers take dramatic license. The writer took dramatic license. He said things in there that would lend people to think it's fake. Why? Here's why. In the book, he talks about George Lutz looking at the staircase and the staircase exploding in front of his eyes and all the spindles of this beautiful staircase flying all over the place. And then investigators later on who went in see that the staircase is intact and was not repaired. So they're saying, well, that was just made up.
Right.
No, it wasn't made up. And why wasn't it made up? Because telepathic hypnosis was projected to George Lutz. There is such a thing as telepathic hypnosis done by an evil entity to make you believe that something is happening in front of your very eyes. And why did they do that? Well, say I'm sitting here right now with Dan, right? And Dan looks over in the corner and says, look, that window just exploded over there. The glass just blew out. And I look, and I don't see it. The glass is perfectly intact. What am I going to think about Dan? I'm going to think maybe Dan's losing it. Maybe Dan's cuckoo. Maybe his imagination is running away. It's done to make Dan look foolish and for me not to believe him. So the devil always plays tricks, always tries to cause confusion, chaos, and trickery to get to their end, which is to have you stay out of heaven.
Right.
What else we got, Dan? Anything else?
People are asking questions. What's going to happen to the museum?
That's still up in the air.
Down the road.
That's still up in the air. People say, what's going to happen when I pass away? I'm never going to pass away, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to live to be 700 years old. No, my spirit's never going to pass, and yours isn't either.
Right. Somebody wants to know, can you tell us a little bit about the Conjuring case? Conjuring 3 case.
Conjuring 3. Oh, that's the Devil Made Me Do It case. That's the case of, there's a book out called The Devil in Connecticut, which is out of print now, but it was done in 82, I think, with Gerald Brittle wrote it. The case of Ed and Lorraine Warren investigating the Brookfield murder case. Mm-hmm. And what that is, and it's good, I believe that the movie's going to be pretty close to what happened, except it'll take some dramatic license too,
right.
Is that David Glotzel, 11 years old at the time, came under diabolical possession at times. We don't know how that happened to him, but he was a sensitive kind of a kid. He would levitate off his bed. He would see this ugly creature. But then Debbie Glotzel was the older sister, and there was Carl Glotzel Jr. and Carl Glotzel Sr., the father, and Judy, the mother. And Arnie Johnson was the boyfriend of Debbie Glotzel, the older sister. And he basically stayed at the house almost all the time. Arnie, 18 years old at the time. And he was seeing what's going on in his house with the young boy, his girlfriend's younger brother, David, how he was being tormented. He was being slapped around, pushed around. He couldn't sleep at night. And he was so frightened that one night Arnie Johnson did what he shouldn't have done. Now, Arnie didn't know any better, but he stood in the middle of the room and he said, when he couldn't take it anymore, what was happening in the house, he said, "Come to me, take me on. I'm stronger. I'm a man. He's just a kid. Do something to me. I'll take you on." That I'm paraphrasing. And nothing happened at that moment with Arnie, who was a very, very nice man now.
Right.
And was then too. Well, later, Arnie was in the backyard and he saw a gentleman by the name of Bono, last name Bono, who was the kennel owner, that Debbie Glatzel worked for. She worked for him, and they were talking in the backyard. Arnie runs up. I don't know if it was jealousy, what it was, arguing with this Bono, the owner. And for some unexplained reason, which we think it's the devil made him do it, because that's the name of the case, he pulled out a knife and stabbed Bono fatally in the stomach area and the chest area, killed him. And he remembers nothing about it. Arnie Johnson today he'll look you right in the eye and say, I don't remember. All I remember is being in the backyard. The next thing I woke up in handcuffs. He was in custody. So the case was brought to the Superior Court, where Ed Warren said that this is a case of demonic possession, and he did get a defense lawyer for Arnie to claim that the devil did make Arnie do this. He was temporarily possessed by a demonic entity. When they got to court, though, the judge immediately, as soon as this Manella got up, the attorney got up and started to talk about this is a case of the devil made me do it, the judge shut him right down and said, that doesn't have any place in a court of law about the devil. And he convicted Arnie, and Arnie got, I think, 3 to 5 years. I believe he got paroled for good behavior a few years in, maybe 3 years in. But I just saw Arnie Johnson and Debbie Glatzel, and now Johnson, maybe about 6-7 months ago. Fantastically nice people. And Arnie's the nicest, most sincere guy you'd ever want to meet. Hard-working guy. Next question, Dan?
People are asking, how do you become a demonologist?
A lot of practice, a lot of life experience, a lot of reading, a lot of faith. See, to be a demonologist, you have to have faith, because in other words, you have to believe that the devil exists. That's the key. If you don't believe the devil exists, you can't be a demonologist. You know, it's like a police officer not believing that crime exists and he's a police officer. That doesn't work. You have to believe in it. Not only that, you have to study it. That's what demonology means, the study of demons. Demonology, the study of. And Ed studied that ever since he was in the Navy in World War II. He lived in a haunted house in Bridgeport, Connecticut, on Jane Street from age 8 to age 12. Horrific things happened to him and his twin sister, Babe. Things that stuck with Ed to the degree that when he was about 16 years old, he tried to join the United States Marine Corps. They found out that he was underage. They stopped it. So he couldn't serve in the United States Marines, so he waited till his 17th birthday on September 7th, 1943. And on his 17th birthday, he joined the United States Navy and went over in World War II. But before he left, he said to Lorraine, he said, when I get back, if I get back, he said, I'm going to find out if other people had those kind of experiences that I had in that house in Bridgeport, those hauntings, the phenomena. And remember, Lorraine was like 17 also at the time. She looked at Ed and she said, hey, Ed, there are no such thing as ghosts and devils and demons. You guys must be all reading the same books. She said that to Ed because she didn't experience it at that time. And he looked at her and he said, Lorraine, you're saying that because you didn't live in a haunted house like I did, but I know it's real and I'm going to find out about it. So he read everything he could. He used to read Fate magazine, which I don't know if it's still published today, but Fate magazine. And then when he got out of the Navy, he started to, increase his investigations he would paint depictions of haunted houses that he read about. And sometimes he would drive up to these locations and sketch out the house on a pad with Lorraine next to him in the 1933 Chevy Eagle that I'm going to show you guys very soon because I'm getting it back Sunday. And I'm going to have a walk around with the car, and I'm going to have the team members there too. And we're going to show you the car and drive it around the house here.
Now, this was Ed and Lorraine's car, right?
It was Ed and Lorraine's 1933 Chevy Eagle sedan that they bought for $15 back in maybe 1950, 51. Ed bought it for $50. Here's the difference between today and years ago. Ed bought the car for $15.
You can't even touch a car for $15.
And guess what? You know what Ed told me? He said, I had to pay it off. I said, Ed, what do you mean you had to pay it off? He said, well, I had to give the guy $5 a month because I didn't have the money. $15. He couldn't buy it for right away. And the guy gave him 2 extra wheels, gave him an extra transmission, extra door. It was nice. And they drove that car all the way to Florida, And I said, Ed, how fast were you going to Florida? He goes, 25, 30, all the way to Florida from Connecticut.
Yeah.
But anyway, to make the long story short, Ed studied. He used to draw the houses, sketch them when he'd pull in front, and then he'd hand the sketch to Lorraine. This is a house he read about. He'd hand the sketch to Lorraine and say, Lorraine, go up to that house, knock on the door. Whoever answers, tell him that your husband made a nice drawing of your house and he wants you to have it. He said, maybe that'll get us in. And guess what? 99.9% of the time, Lorraine would wave Ed to come up to the house. They want to meet you, Ed. And Ed would go in, talk about his painting, how he can paint. But then he'd also say, I read about your house. Can you tell me about it? Because Ed wanted to learn all he could.
Right. So here's a question somebody's asking. If you study demons and you're studying the demonology, are you calling on to the demons as well? Are they attracted to you because you're studying them?
Well, yes and no. They're attracted to you in that they don't want you doing it. So now you're making yourself known to them.
Right.
But if you're not challenging them and you're using protection and you're using your faith, you should be okay. In other words, police officers have to investigate crimes and how murders are committed, right? They're not becoming murderers. They're not getting murdered. The same thing with the demons. By learning about it, just like Ed used to say, learning, gathering information is different than summoning or different than challenging or different than wanting to see things happen in front of your eyes. When you say, I want to see a ghost, you're asking them to come to you. So you don't do those things. You don't say, I want to see a ghost. You don't say, I want to see a devil. But devils and demons will be attracted to those that are studying it because they don't want you to succeed.
Right.
They don't want you to learn how to defend against them. So in one way, yes, they'll be more noticeable of you. Like the devil knows who I am. The devil knew who Ed and Lorraine were. The devil knows who Dan is.
Right.
The devil knows every team member that I have. Yeah, acutely knows us because we fight the devil in our own way. We don't fight him physically. We fight him with prayer. We fight him with the exorcisms, the deliverance prayers, and deliverances by the clergy.
Right.
So I hope that answers the question.
I think that was pretty good. Let's see what else we got here.
What should someone do if they're sensitive and go to places that are haunted? That's from. Is that from? Who's that from?
So this is from Zombie Fanter. It says, what should someone do if they're sensitive and they go into haunted places? Houses that are haunted.
They should protect themselves because they're especially vulnerable. Sensitive people are vulnerable to spirits coming to them because they have that extra sense and extra sensitivity. Protect yourselves with a white light of protection. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't take anything else away from this live feed today, it's this. This is how you protect yourself from demons and devils. You close your eyes. You envision yourself in a glowing, bright halo of light around your body. The brightest white light you can imagine. Try to imagine you walking out on a stage and they hit you with those floodlights all around. You can't even see the audience. You can't see anything. And it's bathing your body in light. Imagine that around you. That's God's light of protection. And ask God to protect you from anything evil, inhuman, or demonic.
Right.
And say it with faith, and you should be protected. But you shouldn't, a sensitive person shouldn't really just normally just seek out and go into haunted locations because, like I said, they are vulnerable. And if you put up the defenses, you never know.
Right. Here's a question somebody's asking. I have a haunting in my house, Tony. We have learned to just start ignoring it. Is that okay? This is from Nita Jimenez.
Jimenez?
Yeah.
Hi, Nina. A good question. I have a haunting in my house. Tony, have you learned to... Okay, you learn to live with it and you ignore it. That's the best thing you could do, is ignoring it and not giving it recognition. Right. The more recognition you give to something, the more it comes to you. And the more you're almost like calling on it. Like if you say every morning when you get up, I hope I don't see the ghost today. I hope the ghost doesn't bother us today. Geez, I'm afraid of the ghost. They want that. They feed off fear. They feed off that recognition. Because you're throwing off energy that way when you talk like that and think like that. But if you just ignore it and get it out of your mind, and it's not bothering you in other ways, like it's not demonic, ignoring it's probably one of the best things you could do is to ignore its existence.
Right. Because there's a lot of locations that do have, activity, earthbound spirits, right? But if you open your house to paranormal investigators, right, they start bringing their own energy into that house. And they also could start saying, oh, look at this photo, look what I captured. But it could be something that they're manifesting in their mind to bring, for it could show on a photo, or they captured a voice. But it doesn't mean that it came from the house. It could be an attachment from that person that went into the house to investigate. Now, what Ed used to say, what does that create? A topa?
A topa, physical manifestation of the mind. Yeah, there are people like in India and stuff that are very knowledgeable, gurus and domos and people of great intellect and great minds that can manifest things through their mind. They can create what's known as a topa, a physical manifestation of the mind. They think of a tiger and they can create the tiger to appear. Very, very intelligent and thinking people do that. And it's a dangerous thing if we try to do it because we don't know how to control it.
Right. So, well, that's what happens. When somebody comes, say, come investigate our house. There was a case that we worked out in PA, which there were tons of investigators that went into this house, but they were giving it more recognition, and I know they were trying their best to help the family, but trying to give the family closure, trying to figure out where it started. When I went in there, I didn't want nothing to know. I didn't want to even know what the evidence was they captured. I just wanted to talk to the family and try to figure out what was going on in their life that this was happening. So you have to do that. Never investigate your own home. Because you're inviting more things in. It's like a Ouija board. You're opening up a portal to allow, spirits to come through. It could be something demonic that's going to come through, and it will torture you. It will come to you, could come to you 5 years, 10 years later, and it could affect your family.
Absolutely. That's the key. The demonic doesn't have to come when you call on it. The demonic comes when it wants to. And getting back to a Ouija board, don't use them. They're not good. It's not the board. The board is perfectly nothing. It's just a benign piece of compressed wood with a plastic planchet. But it's the way you're trying to communicate with it. It's like a gun is benign. Gun doesn't hurt anybody until you pull the trigger, right? When you pull the trigger, you could kill somebody. So by asking the question, is there a spirit here? You just invited in, who knows? Could be an unknown enemy, an unseen enemy like a demonic entity, and not your parents, not your girlfriend or boyfriend. So stay away from doing that. Stay away from the Ouija board. Dan, any other questions that are coming through? I can't see.
Get your glasses back on.
Go ahead.
So the haunted doll Robert.
Yeah.
You've heard about him.
I've
They
heard of
said
him.
if Annabelle and Robert were in the same room, what would happen? It's like Chucky and putting Chucky in this room. What would happen?
Probably nothing. Probably nothing would happen because, spirits coexist all the time, and demonic spirits, misery loves company kind of thing. So demonic spirits stay together. There wouldn't be any war, I can tell you that. There wouldn't be you wouldn't see Annabelle putting up her dukes to try to fight Robert. I don't know too much about the Robert doll. I hear that you have to ask permission to take his picture and things like that.
Yeah.
That's just somebody made that up, I think. I mean, I don't know.
We don't know.
Somebody somewhere said, oh, you got to ask his permission to take his picture.
Right.
Taking pictures of the doll like Annabelle is not going to hurt you. It's when you question and challenge what's there. So if you said, Annabelle, come to me, that's a bad thing to say. Or if there's a spirit in that doll, do something to me, that's a bad thing to say. Because now it can come when it wants to, not when you want it to, because it doesn't have to listen to a human.
Right, because you're inviting the demon in. It's
What
like
other-
doing the Bloody Mary
Yeah,
thing in the mirror.
yeah, right.
You're inviting this demon to come into your life.
Now, I asked this before. I'm just wondering what people think if, say, Dan and I were approached by a production company or a network, to do a TV show on the supernatural. Would that be something you think would be something that we should do? You think it's a good thing to do? I'd like to get your guys' input because if we did do a show, it wouldn't be anything like what you see on TV today because the stuff you see on television today is leading you in the wrong way. I think it's not really teaching you how to help the family. All it's doing is giving the audience perhaps a thrill. Um, to me, I don't watch them because they're not doing anything for the family to help the family out. They look like they're just looking to get thrills for themselves, or to generate ratings for television, which is not what. If Dan and me do the show, of course we want it to be successful. And why is because if it's successful, it'll stay on.
Right, and
But
plus,
we want to teach people things.
right.
We want closure for families. That's what our society does. It gives closure
Yeah,
to people.
and the thing is, and we want to say and how the show is produced, and you know, we would like to dictate because we want to show it for what it really is. How we investigate. How do we go on into a house and help a family? How do we find out what's in that house? Is it demonic? Is it an earthbound spirit? So we ask questions. We ask a lot of questions. We get the family to open up to us, and it helps out. I mean, I think the most important part of an investigation is to interview,
Yeah, I believe it
right?
too. Yeah, I agree because you have to know what's happening in the house, get a sense of the family. Are they religious? Are they dysfunctional? Do they do drugs? Are they alcoholics? Do they work? Are they mental illness in the family? Do they take a lot of drugs? You want to find out all those things because that leads you to a diagnosis, we'll say, of what might or might not really be happening in the house. If you just but times when we'd like to walk in the house too and get a sense of it on our own. Walk around, see is there occult books around? Is there a Ouija board sitting in the corner? Are people always talking about paranormal TV shows? Are they into witchcraft at all? Are they always dress in black? You observe things when you go in too.
So here's another question, Tony. I know, like our group, NESPR, we have a religious foundation, right?
Right.
Now, I've seen like other teams go out there and they will try to conjure up these spirits or even demonic entities that will try to conjure up by doing rituals, playing with Ouija boards,
Yep.
you know, stuff that incantations they will perform to get a response from a demonic, you know,
Yeah.
presence.
That's the wrong thing to do. It's the absolute wrong thing to do, Dan. And why it's the wrong thing to do is because what you're doing is you're challenging what's there. If you're just saying, in the name of God, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to reveal your identity to me, that's not a challenge. That's a command by God. You're personally wanting that to challenge it. So if you go into a place and say, in the name of God, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to reveal your identity now, you are just using what's known as religious provocation, not religious challenge. A challenge would be, to walk in, not use the name of God or Jesus Christ, not use any religious figure, just to say, I want you to show yourself to me right now.
Hmm.
And what are you doing? You're commanding it in your name. First of all, it doesn't have to listen to you. And second of all, you don't have any protection. You always have to have the protection of the Lord. Remember, good and evil exists in everything. And there's thousands and thousands of devils out there. I don't know how many, but I know there's legion, a lot.
Uh, Here's
Yes.
your question. Sergio Lopez is asking a
Sergio.
question.
Hi, Sergio.
He says, "Does the rosary serve as a protection, or does it have to be blessed? First. Well, first of all, I can ask that question
Go ahead.
because
You can answer
rosaries are, it's an item. It's a religious item. It's a necklace and it has the beads on it and everything. But the rosaries is a prayer. So when you're holding the rosaries in your hand, you're saying the prayers, and the prayers are protection. And it protects you when you go on a case. So you could hold the rosaries. Lorraine used to bring rosaries with her, when she went on an investigation for protection. And she also will hold relics, Padre Pio medals,
Yep.
Saint Benedict, Saint Michael the Archangel
Yep.
for protection. So
Absolutely.
you could bring those relics on an investigation. It's good to get them blessed, but it's what's behind the medal. It's the prayers behind it that protects you.
Right, absolutely. What you're doing is you're being close to what? You're being close to the Virgin Mary, right? And you're being close to our Father who art in heaven.
Right.
So when you pray, Hail Mary, full of grace, you're talking about the Virgin Mary, and you're asking for protection. Hail Mary, full of grace, right? Hail Mary, full of grace. Then the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. So it's like you're talking to them when you say a prayer. You're talking to the Virgin Mary, you're talking to the Lord on those two prayers, plus the sorrowful mysteries, the joyful mysteries, all the mysteries of the decades of the Rosary that you pray. It's always good to have those things blessed because it infuses it with goodness. Infuses it with goodness. That's why we have medals blessed and blessed holy water, because the devil doesn't like it. The devil is repulsed by it. Next question.
Let's do one more question. Let's see if we get a good one. Hey, Tony, Dan, do demonic hauntings happen more to religious people, families, or people who don't believe in God?
Well, it's hard to say, but I do know this. I do know that religious people are attacked because their faith is being tested.
Right.
In other words, if you're saying, God is my savior, God is my protector, and then you start to get a devil coming around or a demon coming around your house causing havoc, it may question your resolve and question your attitudes towards faith, and that's what the devil wants. The devil wants you to question your faith, wants you to give up on God, because once you drop your armor, once you drop the armor down, they can come in and attack even further. So in other words, it's like if you are barricaded somewhere and you have guns, right? And you're defending your house from looters. Then all of a sudden, you feel that the guns aren't doing the job, or you're running out of ammo and you just give up. Okay, you give up, they run in, they overtake the house. But if you stand your ground and you have faith that your barriers are going to protect you, your ammo is not going to run out, yeah, you have a chance of fighting it back, right? You can't let the guard down. So you're letting the guard down when you get haunted. And if you let the guard down, you're going to get, overrun.
Right. Tony, here's
Yes.
a quick question.
Yeah.
This is my question.
Oh, your
I
okay.
think a lot of people will want to hear it as well. Now, we have the museum here, right? It was handed down to you from Lorraine when she had passed away.
Yeah.
And Judy, Judy's also involved in everything we do. Explain to me, we don't make money off of this, right? This museum's sitting here, but we educate people about the items in this museum.
Right.
And when we had people come into this museum, we didn't want anybody to get hurt.
Right.
So what did we do to protect them before they enter the museum?
Well, first of all, we tell people not to touch anything. That's the first thing before they even come in.
Right.
Don't touch anything, in the museum. And we would also, if they wanted it or not, we would still do it. We would envision them in the white light of Christ. And remember, the only protection of evil is your belief in the Lord and your faith and your imploring the Lord to help you. In other words, the Lord gives everybody free will. God gave everyone free will. That's why you can make any choice you want to make in life. You could say, I'm not going to take that job. I am going to take the job. I'm not going to take that left turn. I'm going to take a right turn. Nothing's directing you, right? Same with any decision in life that you make. God's not making you make a decision. He's wanting you to make the right decision. So even if you walk into a place like this and you don't believe that God's going to protect you, we protect you. We implore God and His grace and His mercy and His protection to help those inside the museum, including ourselves.
Well, the museum is not a game. It's not. We don't want anybody to come in here and wait to see what happens to them.
Right.
That's putting us in the same level as the demonic.
Right.
And that's not our goal. Our goal is to educate people. To show them what's out there, how the demonic works, and going into a museum and I want to go in there and see what this item does to me.
That's the wrong thing.
That's the wrong thing to do, and we wouldn't do that to anybody. We wouldn't want to put them in harm's way. So
in other words, it's not a joke.
It's not a joke.
Yeah, people take it as a joke. Like they'll make comments about Annabelle, like Annabelle should do this, and Annabelle wanted to go out and get a drink and then come back. And that's all fun, and I take it as just a joke. But in reality, this place is not a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Am I scared in here? I'm nervous. I wouldn't call it scared because, after a while you start to get used to being here. But it's like a nervous energy that you have in here because you know that there are forces here that don't want you
Right.
here. There are forces here that have done things to people. And we have the museum blessed like once a month,
Right.
And the
Priest.
priest comes in, he blesses the individual objects, and he blesses the entire museum, and he blesses us. So that's an extra layer of protection there. How do you think Ed and Lorraine made it for over 50 years of investigating without being seriously injured? Well, except when Lorraine got thrown down the
Mm-hmm.
driveway after the idol was brought here, which will be another story. But I'm going to do an upcoming video. I'll show the Union Graveyard, which is right up the road where the White Lady of Union Cemetery has been spotted. Let me see if I can show her here.
Oh, a lot of people were asking that
There's
question.
see
What is it
that?
with the wedding dress?
There's the White Lady of Union Cemetery. And the wedding dress is not the same kind of thing that was in the movie Annabelle Comes Home. That was somebody just made that up in the movie, but it just happened to be true that there was someone dressed in this museum. That's a doll. It's a mannequin, but it's a representation of the White Lady of Union Cemetery that's been spotted over 90 years ago. And I'm not going to tell you the whole story now because I want to do it from the graveyard, the actual graveyard where the White Lady's been spotted. So I'll do that.
We should go there.
And sometime we'll go there and
Yeah.
we'll talk about the White Lady. We'll talk about how Ed filmed the White Lady, what he saw, what eyewitnesses saw too.
Right.
Can you read anything else, Dan, that's coming through? I mean, I know we're missing. I'm sorry, guys, that we can't. Next time I do this, we'll have a moderator that can see the questions better, a third person. What's that say, Dan?
No, it's just
Sent you an email a while
Yeah,
back.
we get a lot of emails.
What's that say? I was just
It
wondering
says-
if you check your emails. I didn't want it read and wondering if I got in it. No, I'm not gonna. I won't read anything on the air. I think what right here, this one.
I think it's.
What do you keep Ed and Lorraine's memory alive? Oh,
Okay.
you think it's great?
Yeah.
Well, it is great because they were the pioneers of the paranormal. I'll try to read your email. I mean, I get a lot of emails and I read all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Some I do respond to, and some I just don't have time to respond to. But if I think it's important, I will. But I'm keeping their image alive because they were the pioneers of the paranormal, ladies and gentlemen. And Ed and Lorraine were such wonderful people. How do I know that they were wonderful people? Because they were wonderful to me, and they were wonderful to Judy. And they were the most generous people that I've ever met. Ed would walk down the street after a lecture we'd do. We'd go to a diner. And we'd walk out the diner, and Ed would look at Lorraine and say, "Hey, Lorraine, give me $20. And she'd say, okay. She wouldn't even ask him why. She'd pull it out of her wallet, hand it to him. He'd hand it to a homeless guy on the street. Say, here, go get yourself a meal. Now, most people won't even give anybody $1. But I've learned from that who are we as human beings, fellow human beings, to judge other people? And I said to Ed, do you care what he does with the 20? He goes, I don't care what he does. I don't care if he gets a drink. He goes, who am I to deny the guy his pleasures? Maybe he needs that drink or whatever. Maybe he needs a sandwich. I'm going to give him the money. I've got extra money. I'm giving it to him. And that's how we all should be. Not selfish.
Right.
Here I'm getting back to how to live life, but it's true. I pick people for my team because of what they're like, who they are, and how they learn, and what their faith is. In other words, if a team member, if somebody wants to be on an NESPR team, and they say, well, I don't believe in God, I don't even consider him anymore. That's it. I'll tell them, well, I just don't need you. People that are on our team are good people. These are people that will help out in an emergency. These are people who will stop on the side of the road and help somebody. And these are people who slow down when they see a goose or a squirrel running across the road. They won't just keep on going like I've seen some people do. I've seen people just almost speed up when they see an animal crossing the road. What are you in that much of a hurry that you are bothered that the
Right.
goose or the raccoon's trying to cross the road? It's a creature that God created. Remember, it's a creature that God created. And, I'm telling you right now, you're going to be judged on how you treat everybody. You're going to be judged on how you treat animals, too. You really are. So I pick people for the team that are willing to learn, that are empathic. In other words, they have empathy for people. There's a lot of people say, I'm empathic. Well, everybody can be empathic to a degree. It's having a sensitivity. And I take people and see how they do, you know. And people who are really, really serious about the work, I keep them and I put them in a lead position. Hint, you know, Dan over here. So, because he knows what he's doing and he learns and he's smart and he's sensitive and he knows things. Like he knows things that I don't know. Like he can sense about a person that I'll say, well, that guy's all right. And Dan will say, well, I don't know, dude. You got to watch out.
Right.
He'll have a feeling, empathic. He'll have a feeling about it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things Lorraine even said to me one day when I came over and we were both sitting in the living room, and she wanted to test me. She wanted to take me out to different locations, and she wanted to see what kind of what I had, you know. And the thing she said to me is like, you know, a lot of people will never understand us. And I looked at her and I was like, wow. I mean, she sees something that I don't see in myself. But the more I go on these investigations and I help these families, the more I'm starting to see it, and it helps me learn. It helps me educate our clients.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's what Lorraine did. Lorraine, and that's the whole thing, was educating your clients to help them understand what's haunting them and how to deal with it.
You know, that's true, Dan. It's real true. Is to live the best life you could live is to help other people, you know. That's why I like cops so much, and firemen and nurses and doctors and EMT people who like to help other people and to impart knowledge. Teachers, I like good people, and you know, I know most of you people out there, 99.9, are really good people and want to learn and aren't doing anything as a joke or anything like that. There's a lot to learn in this world. We don't know everything. Dan and I don't know. We're tip of the iceberg is what we know.
Right.
But we're digging away, trying to find the truth, trying to find out what helps people. But we do know one basic core of information to be true, and that is God loves us. God wants us to do the right thing. The devil hates us. The devil doesn't want us to do the right thing.
Right.
That's one
It tries
core
to keep,
truth that we know.
It will try to keep us from, you know, doing the right
Keep
thing.
us from glory. Keep us from being in the kingdom of heaven. So we don't want that. We don't want that. We don't want to be kept out of the kingdom of heaven. We want to be there. We want to be with our loved ones who I believe are there. I believe Ed and Lorraine made it there. I believe that my family made it there. Right. Because they're good
Here,
people.
hold on.
Good people, ladies and gentlemen.
And here, Tony, here's one thing, and people don't really, you know, they try to understand, but we have clients that contact us all the time, and
somebody asked me, what is the Necronomicon that you have? Well, it's a book of incantations and rituals, and people say it's a takeoff or a humorous takeoff of the grimoires. I don't really know much about it because I don't open it up to read it, because that's not worth reading to me. What's worth reading to me are biblical books, books on scripture. Those are good books to read. Bad books to read to me are things that are, even if it's a joke, are bad incantations or how to perform an incantation that's not good.
Right.
Next, Dan.
All right,
Any more on there?
let's see. We'll do a couple more, and then I think we're gonna have to cut this one because I think we're over.
Well, how long can we go?
I don't know. We could go on forever, I guess.
Yeah, we'll just do that. We'll do part 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, we'll do more.
All right, here goes.
I'll do one with the moderator next
Somebody's
time.
asking, should we call upon Saint Michael, the Archangel, for protection if we ever feel a presence of an evil entity? Did Lorraine ever have an experience with him or any other angel?
You absolutely pray to Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. That one. That's the Saint Michael prayer. There's more to it. That inscription, ladies and gentlemen, and who asked that question, is on Ed and Lorraine's monument, their grave monument, inscripted on the side, and shows a depiction of Saint Michael's head on the devil's head. I'm sorry, foot on the devil's head. Yes, you should pray it when you feel that evil presence. The first thing I do, though, is pray to God for protection to help me. But saying the Saint Michael prayers is absolutely perfect. Now, I think Lorraine has had I wouldn't say encounter, but a feeling that Padre Pio was with her, such as in Amityville. I'd like you guys to just look up Padre Pio. He was the monk who lived in San Giovanni Rotondo, Italy. He's an Italian monk. His real name was Frangione. His last name, it was Francesco Frangione. He died in September 1968. But he was a Catholic priest, Capuchin monk, who suffered the wounds of Christ for over 50 years. He had stigmata. Some people call it stigmata. I call it stigmata, where you have the wounds on his hands and on his feet and on his side. He would bleed a cup of blood a day, and he used to try to cover up his wounds when he gave mass. But it smelled like perfume, like roses. And he could bilocate, be in two locations at one time. He could perform miracles. So look up Padre Pio. What's that one say, Dan?
This actually is a pretty good question here.
What's it say?
It
I can't
says
read it.
they were neo-Nazis who broke into the occult Nazi castle in Germany and tried to summon up the ghost of Hitler. Thoughts on that?
I don't know about that one. Do you know about that one?
I mean, I don't know. I never heard of it, but I'm sure if somebody did break in there and they were trying to conjure up Hitler, Hitler did evil things.
Yeah.
There was a demonic presence driving him to do those things.
Absolutely.
Right? So by trying to conjuring him up, you're conjuring up a demon. Because he was just so influenced by doing evil acts.
Yeah. Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Why would you want to conjure up the ghost of Hitler? I mean, that's not who I would ever want to talk to, because to me he was no good.
I don't think Hitler's going to come through. I think that the demon that was making him, perform these acts of evil is what's going to come through.
Yeah, because he was in league with the demonic. And somebody like Hitler would be in league with the demonic after they passed away, too. That's who the devil would want to consort with, would be somebody like Hitler to do havoc to this world. No, you don't want to deal with somebody like that who killed so many people. And, people crack me up when they say the Holocaust didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
You want to take the person and shake them and say, what are you, crazy? Of course it existed. You think all these witnesses, all these people who endured it, all these people who have serial numbers on their arm that my wife knew. She worked at a place called Trim Fashions, and there was a Polish immigrant that came over and opened this dress shop called Trim Fashions, and she worked for this guy, Mr. O. His name is Mr. O, and he had on his hand tattooed a serial number. And that serial number, ladies and gentlemen, was a number that he was given in one of the concentration camps when he was younger, growing up. And sometimes some women would come in and talk to him, and he would give them stuff. He would give them a big discount on clothes. And my wife said these women would have a tattoo on their arm because they were part of the people kept in concentration camps in World War II. The concentration camps were real. You want to talk about pure evil, Dan?
Go ahead.
That's pure evil. Yeah. Personified are the concentration death camps of World War II Germany, which I hope the likes of we never see again, because they killed 6 million Jews at least,
right,
and other people too that weren't Jewish, but mostly Jews. He tried to wipe out the Jewish religion.
Right, but that same demon that drove him to do all those evil acts is the same demon that thrives on these evil acts that are happening around the world, right now in the world. Do you believe that?
Oh, I believe it. Oh, I believe it 100% that the things that are happening, the divisiveness in this country, the evil acts that happen in this country, the murders, the rapes, the suicides, the violence against human beings, human dignity, is all influenced by a demonic entity, right?
I definitely agree. It's influenced by a demonic entity. It wants to divide us. It wants us to fight against each other. It wants us to destroy each other. Mm-hmm. So if you fall into that trap and you're creating this violence out in the streets, you're doing the work of the devil. You're doing that work of the demonic to break us apart.
To divide us,
yeah.
Here's something that I want you to know. In the concentration camps, right? They killed many people violently, viciously, put them in the ovens, put them in gas chambers of showers that gas would come out. Killed them, right? They killed these people. Hitler wanted to extinguish these people. But what Hitler failed to realize is that what he did is of course, he killed them tragically. But what he did also, unbeknownst probably to him, mm-hmm. he sent 6 million people at a minimum to heaven. To heaven. He sent them to God. And with do you really think Hitler is with God?
No.
I don't. I mean, you can think he is. I don't think he's there for what he did. I think he's somewhere else, and he'll be there for eternity. And that's another reason why they're never going to get his ghost to come back.
Right. So I think we're way over an hour.
Maybe over an hour, yeah.
So do we want to wrap this up, Tony? You got any closing remarks?
Yeah, we'll wrap it up. The closing remarks that I have is thanks for signing on. Thanks for watching the channel. We're trying to do good works here. We're not trying to just entertain. We are trying to entertain a little bit, but we're also trying to do good works where we're imparting our knowledge to you because we think it's worth it. We're not doing it to make $1 million because we're not going to make $1 million doing this. But we are here to try to help those in need, number one, help you understand about the devil and about God, number two, and to pray to God. Impart all the knowledge that I've learned and Dan's learned throughout the years. Everything I've learned had a foundation, and it was Ed Warren and Lorraine Warren. And then I learned stuff on my own, but the bulk of what I learned was from Ed and Lorraine.
Right. And we're not doing this for money. I mean, we're doing this because we like to help people. We like to educate people in this field. And
if we were doing it for money, Dan, I'd be driving a new Corvette C8, the C8 Corvette 2020 Corvette.
Oh, God, yeah, it's nice.
495 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. Instead, I'm driving a 2018 Honda CR-V that's a lease.
But that doesn't matter. Even if I had $1 million,
I don't think I'd.
I'll be driving a pickup truck still.
Well, I drive a pickup too. I like my Tacoma, Toyota Tacoma. But I feel blessed, don't you? I feel blessed. I have the '33 Chevy that Lorraine and Ed left me. Right. I have the museum which I can impart information from. Mm-hmm. I have a '39 Chevy Coupe that I'm building, a hot rod that I always wanted. It's not done yet, but it's on its way to being done. But the '33 sedan will be here on Saturday, right? So probably Sunday, Monday, whatever. I'm going to do another YouTube video to show you the actual car that Ed and Lorraine drove in for all those miles and went up to Henniker, New Hampshire in. They also went to Henniker, New Hampshire to see the Ocean-born Mary house in Henniker. You can look that up too. The Ocean-born Mary house, Henniker, New Hampshire. That's where Lorraine had her first out-of-the-body experience too. And that car is where they drove them up there. And you're going to see the car, and I'm going to show the outside, the inside, have it running, the whole thing,
Right here, listen. You can take your Waldo glasses back.
Yeah, these are Waldo's wacky glasses. Or are they some other glasses that somebody else wears a lot?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't care either. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we really appreciate all the input here. I mean, I wish I could read it. Next time we do this would be part 2. I'll have a moderator tuned in that could read all the questions and pick out some of the good questions, okay? So Dan and me are blind when we look at this thing.
There's thousands of questions here that are scrolling on this, and I know somebody said we could slow it down, but I think we've answered a lot of questions, and I think we spoke about a lot of knowledge of of Ed and Lorraine, and we'll continue doing that
for as long as we can do it. We're gonna do it, ladies and gentlemen. You should see. You saw some. Can you read the comments on my YouTube when you look at my YouTube? Can you read the comments from people? Try to read the comments. I don't
look at your YouTube.
Yeah, thanks a lot. He doesn't look at my. Thanks a lot. No, but if you do look at it, you'll see all the comments. The people are really nice.
Yeah.
I'd say 99.9, almost 100% are good comments, and that's pretty darn good.
Well, that's good because
and some of the stuff they tell me, I learn from.
Right, and you're doing something right. You're helping people. There's a lot of people asking questions, and they're good.
You know what else I learned? You know what else I learned about the people out there? That 99.9% of them are good people because of the things they say. Right. Not just complimenting me. I mean, they talk about God, they talk about faith, they talk about doing good stuff. You're good people, and I know it. And we're going to keep you guys on the right path. That's what we're going to do.
Right. It's just don't believe everything you see on social media. Come tune into this Tony's channel here, and we'll set it straight. We'll tell you the truth and what's going on with the museum, what's going on in the Warren family's life. Yeah. I mean, tune in.
It's one thing that Dan and I believe in. You know what that is? Telling the truth, admitting our two things, and admitting our mistakes. If I make a mistake, if I say something that later I regret, I'll tell you. If I do something I regret, like bringing the doll out to Las Vegas, and I told you that I regret it, I'm telling you.
You know what? Here's another thing. I know that you regret that, and it was a mistake, right?
Yeah, it was.
But I think there was a reason for it, and I think the reason for it was to expose evil.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree to
and how
that.
evil works. And what it takes to bring forth a demon. It's a lesson, and I think that's what happened. It was a lesson, and how the demonic works, and how the demonic will tempt you, to do stuff like this. I mean, so our job is to catch ourselves and make sure that we're doing everything possibly right.
Right, absolutely. So because temptation is what the devil wants to do to everybody. Tempt. It may be money. It may be romantic involvement with somebody. A temptation. Temptation, ladies and gentlemen, you got to fight it because we're all sinners. Number one. Number two is that's why they call it temptation because it tempts you. It really tempts you to do stuff. So you got to stay away from that. You gotta like say catch yourself, check yourself, and do the right thing. Okay.
Right, and like I said, I mean, you had the right intentions, right?
I did.
And it was like what we do every day here. We educate people on the demonic. We talk about all these issues. So your intentions were absolutely right. I mean, you weren't doing this about the money. You had the intentions to show the world what this evil doll is.
Right. I mean, I be honest. Be honest. I wanted the money. I wanted the money. And so what I did is I made a mistake. I let that greed, a little bit of greed,
Right.
a little bit of wanting, to influence me a little bit. Even though I didn't want to bring the doll there because it's dangerous.
Right.
And so that temptation of here's some money. How about this? That was my mistake. See, that's what the temptation is. What gets you.
Right. And you know what? It takes a lot to
Admit it.
admit that, and and that's why I appreciate working with you, because you're teaching me a lot, and that's what Ed taught you, and you're passing that
When
on.
you make a mistake, people will forgive you for making a mistake. Because when when these politicians make a mistake, you want to know when they get in trouble? Guess what? They get in trouble when they try to cover the mistake or try to explain the mistake away. Like if I kept saying, "Oh no, I didn't do it for the money. I didn't do it for the money." BS. I did it for some of them. I did a little bit of it for the money. So I'm going to tell you that, and you judge the way you want to judge. You want to call me an idiot, a jerk? I'm never watching them again. Hey, I can't stop you. But that's why I want to be honest. And these politicians make bad mistakes when they make a mistake and then try to cover it. That's the
Right. Right.
worst thing you can do is covering your mistake.
I mean, how
Admit
can you,
it and move on.
and that's another thing. How can you earn somebody's trust if you're not honest?
You have to be
You know?
you have to be honest, man. You got to be honest with stuff. You can't be like some of these TV shows when they're not honest. These paranormal shows, they're not honest with the people, with the families.
Right.
All right, so we're gonna sign
Yeah, we'll
off
sign
now.
off right now. Yeah. Till
All right,
next
guys.
time.
So Dan, you have to show me how to exit. How do you exit, Dan?
So we are gonna sign off.
Where? I think it's the X over here. Hold on, we're gonna X
All
off.
right. Say goodbye.
This is. Are you sure you want to stop streaming, ladies and gentlemen?